grab your popcorn and snacks, find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey, welcome to another week of California Haunts Radio. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the evening for about an hour here, and I want to welcome everybody. How was your weekend? I think mine was pretty good. Not too bad. You can see I finally got the backdrop adjusted the way I like it. So I think I'm going to leave it like that, not touch it. As soon as I touch it, it blows to hell. But anyway, again, I want to welcome everybody. Again, my name is Charlotte. I will be your host for the next hour. I am the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. You can find us at californiahaunts.org. Now, if you're interested in taking a look at the radio website, you can find that at californiahauntsradio.com. And we have this, actually, we're going out live right now on the website. And we also have all our archives there for the radio show. So if you want to get up there, and check out our archives, we go all the way back to 2021 for this part of it. And then we're also going back 15 years for the Blog Talk radio show that we did when we were on Blog Talk. Let's see. Oh, also there's events on that page. Okay, starting to get ahead of myself. One thing I have to announce and say, I am going to be busy on the weekend of the 19th and 20th. I'm going to be in San Jose at the Mystical Minds Convention talking about ghost hunting. So if you want to come down and meet me and talk with me, that'd be great. All right. You can visit mysticalmindsconvention.com for tickets and more information about where to stay and what's going on. Because it's not only me speaking, Nazir Muhammad Cohen speaking, Lauren Fenton speaking, Brad Olson speaking, Michael Fury is going to be there, Drake Fury, Tiffany Turner, Robin Korak, Beth Steeleman, and Shannon Del Florentino is going to be there as well. So it's not just me, but it's a kind of chance so I can get to meet you guys because I see your names every day, almost every day, pop up on the feed, and I like to meet you guys face to face sometimes. So this might be a good way to do it. So anyway, that's February 19th and 20th at mysticalmindsconvention.com. Okay? All right, let me move this. I like to just do these like David Letterman does and have that sound of breaking glass. That would be kind of fun. Anyway, we got a great guest tonight. I'm going to see if I get his name right. We all know how great I am with names. Right? Not. Richard Lettieri is a forensic psychologist. But I'm going to let him tell you about what he does, right? Because he can do that better than I can. So without further ado, let's bring Richard in.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
I'm okay.
How did I do on your name? I'm not.
You did fine. It's Lettieri. Good Italian name. You got that. You had the Italian swing to it.
That's it. I tried. So tell us about you, sir.
Well, yeah, as you say, I'm a forensic psychologist. I practice in Southern California, in Orange County. And I'm also a psychoanalyst. So I'm trained. I have a private practice, although I'm cutting down on that in my recent years since writing the book. I've been so busy. But as a forensic psychologist, I'm hired by private attorneys or by the courts. I'm on an expert witness panel to do evaluations of defendants for a variety of reasons. As a psychologist in the forensic arena, in a legal system, that means that there are certain questions that frequently the court or the attorneys want me to answer with regard to the defendant's behavior or especially his mental state. Because usually when for most crimes, it's not just the behavior, it's the mental state at the time of the crime. So when that's in question or when that could be an issue, then they usually call in a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And so if someone's insane, if there's a sex offense, what are the risk of that happening again? What prompted this? Is he a pedophile? Was this an aberration of some kind? Violence, things like that. Are they competent to stand trial? Were they psychotic at the time of the offense? What's mitigating? Is there anything mitigating? Is anything excusing? So someone who's psychotic and they kill their family member, I say family member because that's what usually the victim on these cases there. The prosecution will call an expert defense will call an expert, and then they'll see how we view it, and sometimes it goes to court, sometimes they settle. So it gets dicey and complicated and interesting.
And how long have you been doing this, sir?
Do I have to say that? Yeah, I got my license as a psychologist in 1981.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had postdoctoral training. You have to do a lot of that in psychoanalysis, mental disability law, neuropsychology, because a lot of these guys have mostly men, not all the time. I have a chapter in my book on women who killed her babies, a lady killer who's got but it's mostly men. But so I trained in neuropsychology. So I've been doing the expert witness since about the late 1990s. So over 25 years. I started slowly because I gradually started doing more and more of it. So it's been a interesting ride.
I bet. What is the difference between, say, a psychopath and a sociopath?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's great interest in people in psychopathy, in the psychopath. I have a blog page for Psychology Today.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a blog on the 7 signs of a psychopath, and it got like almost now 300,000 hits. I mean, it's just people are really interested in that. So the difference, psychopath and sociopath. Sociopath is a term used in the past. It's not really used professionally anymore. The equivalent would be antisocial personality now.
Okay.
But the sociopath is probably a little more accurately descriptive, because the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath or antisocial personality is the psychopath has a certain personality structure that's very callous, that very indifferent to people's emotions, is underreactive themselves emotionally, so things don't bother them, and it's just their brain is different, is organized differently. So they don't learn from experience. Even when they're younger, nothing bothers them. They don't respond to discipline. They may behave, but they're sneaky. Then they get around it. They really don't internalize the same kind of morals that someone who doesn't have that kind of tendency does. An antisocial personality is someone who's been antisocial, maybe has done criminal things, but they're not. They don't have that kind of temperament and psychology. It may be because of their social environment. That's where sociopath comes. They live in a bad neighborhood. They grew up in bad surroundings. They had learning disabilities, so they bad self-esteem, and they're angry, or they're impulsive, and they ADHD, so they ended up committing crimes, and then they get in trouble, and then it feeds on itself. But they don't. But they're capable of feeling remorse. They're not like a psychopath. So there's a big difference. Psychopaths are very dangerous, whether they're criminals or not.
Ted Bundy was considered a sociopath, correct?
Oh no, Ted Bundy was a psychopath.
Okay.
Pure psych. I mean, he was somebody very callous. I mean, this is the thing with psychopaths, that like Ted Bundy and like many of them,
Mm-hmm.
they can be very bright and they can be very charming. That's the problem. It's not like someone has a major mental disorder like schizophrenia. That when they're acutely ill, you don't have to be a psychologist to tell. I mean, they're talking to themselves. They're paranoid. But a psychopath could be very smooth. Very, very kind, very on the surface. They know how to. They have social skills. They know how to react. They know what they're supposed to do. So they do that, but they're very instrumental. They do it for a reason. They do it because they have a plan. Like Ted Bundy, his plan was, women, he was good looking, right? Women thought he was a nice guy. They thought he was be kind. He'd stop, if a woman was having trouble in the street, they'd help him. He'd help him to the car, develop a relation. They think, hell, with this nice, good looking guy. Then when he gets them, he'd torture them and kill them and have sex with their dead body. But you couldn't tell that on the surface by his superficial social behavior. So, yeah, Ted Bundy's a psychopath.
When you talk like that, I think of poor Anne Rule. Here she's working with him on the suicide hotline, not knowing what he actually is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's the manipulation is astonishing, and there's a lot of psychopathic people who are not criminals. I mean, they know how to. They're successful. Uh, do you hear that music? Is that? Do you hear
Yeah,
that?
what music is that?
No, that's my granddaughter. She's practicing the piano. I can ask her to stop. Is that?
No,
Is
no, no,
that?
that's fine. I have no problem with it. It's okay. I like it. I like it. It kind of adds to what we're
Okay, I'll tell her that when we stop.
what we're discussing.
She's
It's all good.
background music for us.
Yeah, see, that's it. And if it gets really intense, then we're doing really good. You know
I,
what I mean?
I actually thought it was coming from you. I thought, is it a commercial?
People are fascinated with this stuff because there are people out there like Ted Bundy and Edmund Kemper, and all these different guys. And more recently, you get somebody like the Night Stalker, somebody like
the,
that.
the Night Stalker. Yeah, I remember that guy. I remember him in the 80s. And
Yeah.
everybody, he was in Southern California. In fact, some of the murders he committed were in Orange County, where I practice.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of anxiety about that. And, after he was caught, I think he recently, past year or two, died, correctly, in prison.
Right. Yeah.
I had a friend who was a prison psychologist and worked at the same prison as that he was housed in, and he would get visited by a stream of women who wanted to marry him, come and visit him and bring him things. It's very, very interesting.
Now, from your perspective, I'm gonna now that you opened that Pandora's box.
Yeah.
From your perspective, what kind of woman wants to get involved with somebody like him, or say Ted Bundy, or something like that?
Well, I wouldn't say one kind of. There's probably different kinds of personality styles, right? That do that. And there's a kind of fascination with the living on the edge, with that kind of, in my book I describe this human nature as demonic. I don't know if you've seen. Oh yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I describe human nature as demonic, and I don't mean in that I don't mean demonic in the it's demonic. I spell it in the Greek way, because I don't mean demons. I don't mean like ghosts or demon. I mean that I use it in a Platonic sense, that human. Plato said like eroticism is demonic. It's beyond reason. It's extraordinary. It moves us as people, so that the spectrum of the demonic could go from what inspires artists, inspires us all to do things that are creative and generative, but it also, on the dark end of this demonic, is where this capacity to be really evil is. So I always, that's always in the background of my mind, and I tried to keep it in the background of my book, that what happens, that some people move more towards the dark end of the demonic, and I think some of the women who are interested in these kind of guys, there's a sort of fascination with staring in the face of that kind of evil, and maybe trying to get close to it and try to nurture it, as though that could make it get better. I think a lot of, it's sort of like alcohol, it's like an extreme version of people who grew up in alcoholic families frequently end up marrying or being involved with alcoholics. And I've had this in my private practice, people who do this, and they'll say, I don't want to do that anymore, but then they'll end up meeting a guy, and the guy be an alcoholic. Is you think, well, how does that happen? Well, I think there's sort of attraction to a past as a way of trying to master the past. Okay. It's not masochistic. It may seem that way, but it's really more of an attempt to redo the past. I mean, if I can make this person better, maybe I can feel better about my destructive parents, for example.
Sure.
So it's a psychological mechanism.
Because you see a lot of this, like with the Menendez brothers, the women that married them, and the amount of mail they were getting from women.
I didn't know that. That's yeah. Yeah, you know somewhat more about these stories than I did. Did the Menendez, but they're still in prison, both of them, or is that
Yeah,
right?
they're actually in the same prison now. They put them together again for
Oh,
the first time in like 21 years. They're back
oh,
together.
where are they? Which prison?
I believe they're in San Diego
San Diego.
somewhere. Yeah.
Donovan.
Yes, I think
Donovan's
so. Yeah, I think that's
Donovan's a
what it was.
tough prison.
Because one of them was over here by me at Mule Creek.
Oh, yeah. I worked for a while at CIW, California Institute for Women,
Mm-hmm.
years ago. But I know Donovan's very. I don't know how it is in the one up in Creek. Donovan's very tough prison to work in.
Yeah.
Uh,
Are you ever? How do you interview these guys? Are they chained down when you talk to them, or how's that
mm,
work? I mean, to me,
well,
walking in. I mean, I know you do this for a living. I'm a crime beat reporter, so I've gone to jails and interviewed guys in jail.
okay.
But I'm just saying, to me, with that kind of past, I don't know. I would be a little leery talking to these guys one on one.
Yeah, my friends sometimes say, "Are you okay going in?" And sometimes the deputies say, why don't you see them behind behind the window, with the phone?" And for my evaluations, most of the time, because most of the time I'm doing a mental state at the time of the offense, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to get into their subjective life. You have to develop a rapport. I have to do psychological testing. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
do it on the phone, or I can't do that with them chained down. A lot of time I'm doing neuropsychological testing. They have to use their hands, or they have to do things that I'm giving them to do, or they have to even psychological testing. I have to give them something, or I'm on the computer with them. So I do have to be in the booth with them. Without any, I asked the deputies to take off they come in, chained down sometimes, especially if if they killed someone and they
Mm-hmm.
have a violent history. But I asked the deputies to remove the chains, because I have to work with them. And sometimes they give me a hard time on that. And what they'll do is they'll chain their legs to they're sitting on a stool and there's a metal rod at the bottom of their chain, so they can't go over the table and get me. But I've never been attacked. I've been doing this for over 25 years and never been attacked. That's for a few reasons. First of all, if someone's a psychopath, for example, there's no incentive for them to do that to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in their interest. The more potential for that to happen is with someone who's delusional, who's psychotic, because I'm probing, and that could be invasive, and that can stir paranoia, and they might see me then as dangerous to them, so I have to be careful with that. But that requires some clinical skill. You have to know who you're talking to, and knowing when to back off, knowing when you can probe, knowing when the person's fragile, developing a rapport. I have to develop a relationship with them, because we're going into some things that I prepare this for them at the beginning. I talk about what we're going to do, what I'm going to do, if there's anything that it's private, confidential, if I was retained by their attorney, but also that I'll be doing a report to the attorney. If the attorney uses it, it's not private anymore, because then he's submitting me as a witness. But if he doesn't use it, then it stays private forever. And I tell them, if I'm talking about something, if I ask you about something you're uncomfortable with, don't lie to me. Don't just tell me you don't want to talk about it, and then we'll decide what to do. But it's ultimately up to you. So I try to give a person the latitude that they deserve, because it is their life. So in that case, and I've worked in privately. I've had a lot of experience. My internship was in Orange County Mental Health, inpatient. So, and this place I worked with, every day we'd have to rapidly evaluate very psychotic people. So I have a lot of experience with craziness. I'm very comfortable with it. So that helps me, and I think that helps in doing these kind of interviews.
That's why my next question is this: you go to medical school,
Graduate school, PhD.
Okay, PhD.
Yeah.
at what point, what separates you from, say, a regular psychiatrist? Is there like, it's kind of like, I always think of like a GM assembly line, where they have the Chevys and they have the
Yeah,
Pontiacs, right? And then
right.
some point on some point on the assembly line, the Chevys go this way and the
Yeah.
Pontiacs go that way. Is that how it works? You decide what you're going to specialize in, and then you branch off into your division, or is it one big lump of a thing?
Well, no, the thing is, it's real different pathways to training. Psychiatrists are physicians, so they go to medical school and then they have to select a specialty. So psychiatrists selected psychiatry. Then they do 3 years of residency, typically in the hospital. And these days, for the past 35 years, the emphasis is on medication, psychopharmacologic evaluate, diagnosis and medication. They unless they go for a postdoctoral training, specialized training, they really don't do much psychotherapy or psychological evaluation. They're much more symptom oriented.
Okay.
And that, in my opinion, is a problem. Makes them very limited. Important when you need the medication, if you need the medication, like that for some of the illness. But to be a forensic psychologist, a forensic psychiatrist, you then go for additional fellowship, and you learn, and you learn to say, there may be the fellowship may be very similar to what I do. Like I did the mental disability law. It's this that then these evaluations are the same, but you have a different background. My background, I've always been more interested in psychology, philosophy, more the social sciences, and I got interested in the neuroscience in the back door, because I know with so many of these men and women that I evaluate have had frequently have some kind of insult to their neurocognitive system. I mean, they've been in fights, they've been battered over the head, they've been, or they have learning disabilities, or they have ADHD, kinds of issues like that require a certain kind of understanding of neuropsychology and neurodevelopment. And as a neuropsychologist, it's really helpful because I can do neuropsychological testing that targets their functional ability, and that's really important legally to say, because it doesn't matter if you have brain damage. It really doesn't matter legally unless that brain damage affected your mental state at the time of the crime, or affects your capacity for self-regulation. So, sometimes I'll evaluate someone and they have these problems, but the testing shows they have these problems, but my total evaluation shows they had intent at the time. So they're still, I can't tell the lawyer that, no, because he has this problem, he didn't have intention. He did. He knew what he was doing at the time. He did it purposefully, even though he has learning disabilities or had. But I may be able to say it's mitigating because he's got frontal lobe problems, so he's more impulsive, and he doesn't. Then he's sorry for it afterwards. I can explain the literature on that and the results of the finding, and that will help in terms of mitigation. But basically, the difference between a forensic psychiatrist and a forensic psychologist is really one in emphasis. And yeah.
On TV shows, Discovery Channel, I'll just say Discovery Channel or whatever.
Yeah.
They have talked about looking at the human brain of these serial killers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Have you done that at all to try and explain what's going on?
I've kind of pretty familiar with the literature on the brains of psychopaths.
Okay.
And and serial killers are a subgroup of psychopaths.
Sure. I'm just saying, if people with mental issues to look at the brains and see what.
Oh yeah. With that, see, this is the thing though. It's very dicey. It's very the literature is recent, the past 20, 25 years. That's recent, and there's not always a direct linear and causal connection between what you see on an MRI and someone's behavior. So you can't really say, oh, their MRI is abnormal, so they're excused. It's not that way. That's why you could. That's what I was saying about neuropsychological testing.
Right.
you have to see what are their functional impairments. Because sometimes people, for example, not in the forensic arena, but you do MRI on someone and you go, wow, they shouldn't be functioning as well as they are. Then you do an MRI on other people and you say they're older, but their brain looks in good shape relative to someone their age, but they have impairments. Mm-hmm. So it's not a one-to-one relation. The brain is very complicated, and probably what happens, different people for different reasons develop neural networks around their deficiencies. So and some people don't. That's why it's good when you're young, when by the time you're 30, 40, to do different kinds of things. Like even if you're a brilliant neurophysicist, nuclear physicist, it will probably pay dividends for you to take literature courses, to take poetry, do something, because you're building different networks that will compensate. If you can be a brilliant scientist, then as you're getting old in your 70s, if certain networks start fraying, that's it. But if you have compensatory brain development, you're in deal. If you started playing the guitar when you were 25, so your brain, you're using different parts of your brain. So it's hard to tell you. You just have to see someone's functional ability and how that functional ability may or may not have contributed to the behavior at the time of the crime. So it has to be very specific. The law doesn't just say, well, he's got brain damage, so he's excused. No, it's much more much more detailed than that. So it's always the behavior and the mental state at the time, and it's very hard to do. It's very complicated because you're trying to get into somebody's head. And I can do all this testing, and a lot of it's very valid. And you have to meet certain standards of science on the instruments you use, because they can call you on that. You can't just use anything. There are different standards. The Daubert standard, I don't know if you heard that, or Fry. In California, it's Fry, but so you have to see. They can call you on this test you used. Does it meet the standards of science? Is it empirically validated? Is it peer reviewed? Is it accepted in science? What are the base rates? What are the error rates? Things like that. You have to be able to, use instruments that have all this. But even then, it comes down to what was this person going on with this person at the time. So that's what makes it interesting. That's an area that I'm as trained as a psychoanalyst. That helps, because that's what psychoanalysts do. You spend time dwelling in someone's internal life for long periods of time. That's the difference between psychoanalytic therapy and behavior therapy or cognitive behavior. It's not just symptoms, deal with that. And that's what people criticize it about it, but because it takes time and it's more meandering, it's not so focused, but it is focused on the inner life. So in there I have and being on the couch for like 6-7 years myself, I know, I had to dwell on my own inner life. So I'm kind of familiar with that. Yeah. And comfortable with it again.
One thing that came to mind when you were talking was someone like Edmund Kemper, who was killing animals as a child. I mean, were there ways, had somebody caught on to what he was doing, are there ways, like you say, like to switch the neurotransmitters, to get them going in other directions? Like, somebody that has that tendency, is there a way to shift their mind into not doing that stuff or going that direction?
Well, it's not that easy. I mean, putting kids on medication is dicey. But here's the thing, you can go by, like you mentioned, torturing animals. So you might think, oh, that's a good symptom, right? That's to show if someone's doing that, then get them in therapy.
Yeah,
probably true that they're torturing animals, something's wrong. But the thing is that you always have to consider base rates. Now, what I mean by that is prevalence. Like what are the percentage of people who tortured animals become serial killers? Very small. So you can't really make a generalization from that. You might think you can. It's sort of like to give an analogy, let's see if I get this right with statistics. I kind of forgot exactly, but most people who have lung cancer smoked, but most people who smoke don't get lung cancer. I don't remember the statistics,
okay,
but so you can't, if someone smokes, you can't say you're going to get lung cancer. Right? Most don't, and the prevalence rate is even lower of people who torture animals, become serial killers or a psychopath. They have problems, but most of them have problems that should be addressed. But whether they're going to be killers or psychopaths, it's not. You have to do a more thorough kind of evaluation. And when they're really young, it's hard to know. Now, I have an interesting story on this. When I was first starting my practice, not forensic practice, just as a psychologist, before I got into mental disability law and all that, I saw a mother brought their little boys in. They were, I don't know, 6, 7. The older one was maybe 7 or 8, and then one's a little younger. And because of a divorce, and the mother was kind of a cold fish, but she was very concerned and a good mother, but she was just emotionally stilted. But trying her best with these 2 boys, and her husband left her. And I saw the 2 kids, and the older boy was real responsive. There was no big problems. The mother was just wanted to get them help because of the dad leaving, and she saw behavior changes. So, some of the play therapy, kind of give him homework, have the mother deal with them differently. The older boy was very responsive, and the mother would tell me, the little guy, he tells me, okay, everything's okay, he'll do it, but then he just doesn't do it. I noticed that too, and he just didn't respond. But I saw them for a few months. The mother said, okay, what, he's doing okay. The older guy, I'll work with the younger one, fine. So, years later, I'm in a hospital practice, and I'm walking in the hospital, and I see one of the young men, maybe 21, 20 was how old he was, early 20s. He looked familiar, and I asked one of the nurses, who's treating that kid there? So she told me, and I went over to the doctor who was treating. I said, "What's the star? What's his name?" I didn't want to look at the chart, so you're not supposed to look at someone else's chart. So he said, "Yeah, he's come in. Yeah, he's a little antisocial. The lawyer put him in. I'm going to discharge him. The lawyer thinks it's good because it's going to look good if he's hospitalized because he got a little depressed. But he was burglarizing places." And I said, "What's his name?" He told me his name. I said, "Oh, damn that! I know that. That's the little boy that I saw as a little kid. He was just a little kind of sneaky. This wasn't really responsive. I wouldn't say he was a psychopath. I mean, he was just, but you can see a difference in his temperament right from early on. So if that's what you're talking about, that's true. And that there's another interesting point that when what's naturally happens for the good or ill is it's important between the match between the kid and the parents. So if you have a kid that's impulsive, that's doesn't learn from experience a lot, tries to get around rules, you need parent that set limits, that's harder on them, not cold, because they need nurturing. It's sort of like the term that's used in family therapy is a pat on the back and a kick in the ass. You got to do both. You got to, and you got to kick them in the ass until they're controlling them, and then pat them on the back. But so if you have a parent or parents, let's say, that are English professors and I think, very progressive and don't want to stifle, it's not good for a kid like that. Like that needs somebody you have to respond to the kid regardless of what your style is as a parent or your temperament or your personality. But on the other hand, if you have a kid who's aesthetically prone, sensitive, emotional, and you have a father who wants him to be, wants him to be a football player, so pushing him into that, it's destructive if you don't see who your kid is and respond to them. So, in that sense, I think, that's what's important. Like this mother, though, with this 2 kids, she was doing really what she can. I mean, I can see that. but she was a single mother. She was this financial issues that, it was hard on her. How much could she just bring the kid to therapy when she can? So life doesn't always afford you everything you need when you need it.
Has there been any cases that you've worked on? You don't have to give names or anything like that, but any that really bothered you?
Oh, so many. Bothered me in what way? Like that I felt, well, yeah,
Just
I mean,
as a it's just as a psych, just with what you do and the crime they did, and how, once you got in their head to see why they did it.
yeah, yeah. I have one case in the book that was very difficult on me. This woman who, in a frenzy, almost killed her lover, a boyfriend, and then killed his sibling. It was just horrible. I mean, she just went in a rage, and she was very sick, but she wasn't psychotic. And she was just in such a denial. She had a severe borderline personality disorder. And, the lawyer was called for an insanity defense, and I couldn't get there on insanity. It's a complicated case. But it was very hard to say. The thing that was hard, I still testify that the case for her issues, but I couldn't testify about her being insane. And she was found sane, by the way, eventually. But it was very hard because she was so she was so disconnected and in denial about what she did, the consequences of what she did. And at the trial, being in there, I got there early and sitting there in the galley, and then the boyfriend came in and sat like on the other side of the galley, but right across from me. It was very hard seeing that because I saw the interview of him. I saw the crime scene photos, and it was. I know what happened. I know what happened to him, and he's probably looking at me with disdain, thinking I'm kind of trying to get his the defendant off, but I wasn't. I was kind of presenting, the facts. But just seeing him there I almost got sick to my stomach. It was very difficult, very hard. And other times, another case. It's again this woman who, killed one of her children, but she was psychotic, and she was. It was very sad, and the family. Her husband, the father of them, testified, no, she was ill. She loved her kids. And this woman was found sane. It was hard to grasp what they could see, other than only thing I can understand that the jury made that decision because she didn't have a long history of mental illness. It was only for about 9 months, about a little over a year that she was decompensating for a lot of reasons. But she didn't have a history of if someone has a history of schizophrenia, and the people, I think, are more understanding. But they saw the death of a child and the mother who did it, and they just couldn't get around it. And it disturbed me at the DA at the news conference afterwards. Commented she got what she deserved, that she did it because she was angry at her husband to get back at him. That was totally bullshit. And I even thought, does he believe that? Does he believe that? It's the kind of things cases like that, very kind of crushing. And just the human, the human tragedy of it all, a child dying, and the mother now probably in prison for 25 years to life. She really doesn't. This was a disturbed woman, and even the family. All the family came. I interviewed the family, and it's kind of all about what was going on leading up to this. But the presentation was that she was getting back at her husband because of what he did with drugs, and that was like 7 or 8 years ago. Things have improved. The husband was working. He was trying to take care of her. In fact, there's a whole long thing. But a case like that, those things are very, very hard.
How do you shake that stuff off, though? I mean, I remember as a news reporter, covering these trials, and some of them, man, it's like they're just so intense. Even from my perspective, covering them, because you got crying families, you got this going on, you got that going on. How do you go home and just shake that off?
I don't. Like family, when people say to me, how do you compartmentalize? I said, I do not compartmentalize. If I did, that would be a problem. I couldn't do my job well. I'd end up being closed off. I'd end up being bitter. But you have to process it. And I think it has a lot to do with how acquainted you are with your own nature, the range of your own emotions, and the acceptance, the range of what people are capable of, and tolerating that and absorbing it. Your demonic nature of everybody, if I can use my own phrase here, but and I don't cut it off. I mean, I don't just try to talk myself out of it. I absorb it and kind of suffer with it for a while, and like you do anything else, and you grow from it. And I think it gives me a dimension of of tolerating people. It's kind of makes you more humble, really. Makes you humble and more accepting that people are complicated, unpredictable, and even people do some bad things that they're still human beings. That in some ways they can be good, but they're very, very, very bad. So it's just the complexity of human life that is sort of absorbing. That is paradoxically enriching, if I can say that, if that makes sense.
For somebody to do something heinous like that, I mean, there's, of course, you see the TV shows, you see the movies, where somebody had an instant flash of anger and killed somebody.
Yeah.
Is that a viable defense? Or, I mean, does that, again, go back, when a guy like you goes in to talk to them, you go back and look at certain things to see if there was a buildup to it?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's when you're kind of making, like lawyers. I've done a lot of the cases like that, and lawyers kind of trying to make a distinction between murder and manslaughter. First degree murder, second degree murder, so manslaughter. Manslaughter is heat of passion crime. I have a chapter in that on this, and on one gentleman. It's a few people I evaluate to try and make some distinctions on this, but it's on did someone commit this crime in a state of extreme passion that a reasonably normal person would, what you can imagine a reasonably average person committing it based on the kind of stress they were under at the time and their reaction. So again, that requires, I mean, you can imagine how you really have to get into somebody's head. You have to, not just into their head, you have to really get into the details of their life objectively, just before it happened, what was going on when it happened, what happened afterwards, to kind of start getting a total picture of whether this person, whether it was premeditated, which would be first degree murder if it's not premeditated, but they, at the time they decided to kill him at the time, or that they really were in such a state of rage that they really couldn't contain themselves. So that's a difficult call to make sometimes.
When you talk about the demonic mind, what comes to mind for me is that we all have these thoughts occasionally. We all have anger thoughts. We all have a fascination with this kind of thing, the macabre or whatever. We all have these thoughts. But is the difference between, say, the criminal and us is because we don't act on them?
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Everybody has those thoughts. And what's his name? David Buzz. I think it's my final chapter. I talk more about this. He's a evolutionary psychologist, and he wrote a book on The Murderer Next Door, I think is the title of it. You'd have to look at it. I reference it, but he talks about how the mind, from an evolutionary point of view now, is wired to kill. Because you're wired through most of human history, you stayed in a tribe, and if there was a tribe outside of you, you're fighting for resources. Basically, I'm simplifying it, but he goes into this. So you go kill because there's limited resources. So you stay with your tribe, you kill outside your tribe, and you get to get the resources. And he did a survey, international survey, and there was something like 90% of people, men and women, have thought of killing somebody, seriously thought of it, not just, well, I feel like killing him. I have seriously thought, I would like to kill that person. Okay. But most people don't do it, right? That's the whole point. They don't do it. But there is that demonic, we're real capable of doing bad things. Everybody's capable of it, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I think that's pretty well almost established. I mean, if it comes down to it, and this is what this moral injury is about. You know that term, moral injury, that study of that stuff now, that someone is in a predicament and they kill someone. I mean, you're a police officer, you're in Vietnam. I have friends who were in Vietnam, and then afterwards, though, unless you're a psychopath and nothing bothers you, you start, when you're outside of the danger, you start recalling what you did. And for most of us, it's not, it's difficult to tolerate. So, and the studies on, the triology, they call it, the studies about the trolley and all that, you familiar with that there's and this looking at the brain, and certain parts of the brain react when you're pushing someone. If you think about pushing someone to kill one person to save 5, that kind of thing, different parts of the brain light up. But there is a moral hesitancy to do things like that. That's also hardwired. So there's hardwired to be good, and there's hardwired to be not so good. So with the architecture of our nature is wide ranging and gives us a lot of options, and that's understandable because we needed a lot of options to evolve. For most of our human history, we didn't have refrigerators. I mean, we didn't go out and get food or make it, and if we didn't get it, we're going to starve to death. There's no one's going to take care of us. So you stayed in your tribe. There's division of labor in the tribe, and you get violent as hell, and that when you have to, but you're attached to your tribe, right? To the members of your tribe. So you got a range of options in the way, and a range of skills that are really architecturally, bioarchitecturally established over eons of time. So that's who we are, for better or worse.
When you go in to evaluate somebody, say for a trial, obviously you're doing it in a prison setting, where you're sitting across the table from them, like you said. How long does it take to do that evaluation?
For these, I also do simpler kind of evaluations, like competency to stand trial. Those are more functional. They're not hard to do. That's like about an hour. But to do these kind of evaluations, I'll be with them for 3-4 hours. I mean, the problem is you got to go to the bathroom. You can't go to the bathroom because that will take hours. Then you got to come back. But then I have to see them multiple times. So it takes, it depends on the patient, the defendant, the quality of their cooperation. If I have to do neuropsychological testing, it's even longer. That takes, that could be 6 hours just to do that testing, never mind all the history taking, the going over the crime. I have to, usually I have to go over it if I can, and there's resources, a few times with them. And I'll say that, you think about what we talked about, I'm going to think about it, then I'm going to come back and we're going to go through this again. So, because if it goes to trial, I have to feel pretty certain. I mean, if I'm going to be on the witness stand, I want to know what I'm talking about, or at least as much as I can. Also, the other thing that we didn't get into, you have to rule out faking.
Okay.
Right? I mean, people have there's an incentive to exaggerate symptoms or minimize things that they are. So in these cases, I always have to do testing and keep in mind the possibility of a symptom distortion, either purposely or unconsciously, because people who have emotional problems have distorted perceptions of themselves and others, even if they're not psychotic. They just so so that takes a lot of thinking through and testing. And a lot of the testing I do have established validity scales that are pretty sophisticated, but you still have to interpret them. It's like everything. It just does. You just don't read it, and it's the answer. And then I may have to go back and say, look, this is what I've seen in this. What you answer this way on these scales, but that's not what I see. And the testing, would suggest you're kind of exaggerating some what's going on, because and I have to deal with that. And I have to tell the lawyer, look, he's not being honest. He's not credible. I have to have these talks with the attorneys. Those are difficult. I have attorneys saying, "Oh, don't tell me that." I say, because they're maybe in a bind. They're hoping for insanity, and I'll say, "I can't get there." And they go, "Oh, don't tell me that." I said, "I'm sorry, I can't get there." So, you run into all kinds of things.
Well, that would be, I think, somebody who wouldn't want to go to jail, who wouldn't want to spend time in prison. They'd rather spend time in a hospital.
Yeah, they'd rather be going to the hospital, or they're even if they don't want to go to the hospital, they don't want to. I gave the example of insanity, but a lot of times the attorney and the client will say, have to work that out and say, okay, there may be an insanity defense here, but do we want an insanity defense? Because if I'm found insane, they could, unless it's like a first degree murder, you're going to get life in prison. You can end up in a forensic hospital for longer than you would be if you found guilty of the crime. Because in order to get out after being found not guilty by reason of insanity, you have to have two mental health experts agree that person has his or her sanity restored and is not a danger to the community. And even then, they just don't let them out of jail. They do let them out of prison, but they have to go to like a board and care home. They're still on the watch for another, and they'll be on parole for a long period of time in a confined board and care home kind of thing. So it's that's another consideration a lot of times.
Right.
If somebody is very mentally ill, it's not a consideration. If somebody has a long history of severe illness and they end up, waking up in the morning and feeling like their father is a terrorist, is going to kill them, or it's going to end the world if I don't kill him. Instead, that person, there's no doubt this person's, it would be malpractice not to file for insanity. But when the case is dicey, and they hope, if maybe we can try to get second degree murder or manslaughter, but this person probably is a candidate for insanity. But maybe we can negotiate if I get an evaluation showing documenting their illness. Maybe we can do something else that the person could do other than found insane and go to a hospital for God knows how long, maybe forever.
So I read an excerpt from your book. Your book is fascinating.
Oh,
and
that's
like I told people before, I've been a crime beat reporter for I spent 7 years on the beat.
Really? Wow.
So I saw quite a bit. It was a small town, a smaller city, but even the small cities have excitement. Just put it that way.
Oh yeah, that people are people.
More people,
There's more people in big cities.
So your book's really, anybody that's interested in that book should read it. It's a fascinating read. absolutely fascinating.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to ask you about someone like Ed Gein, who, who his mother. I mean, let's get the bottom line on it. His mother. How could a parent have that much influence over a son like that to get him to the point where he was?
Oh, who is that? I'm not sure. The
He's the
who?
one that back east that they based Silence of the Lambs on.
Oh, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah,
Okay,
that they
based.
based that Buffalo Bill on. Where he was digging up the dead women and
Okay,
using their keeping their skin and putting the skin on, and all this was going on, and
okay,
eating out of skull caps and all this. What
okay.
can
Yeah.
push a child to that
No, no
point?
way. No, you can't blame that on his mother.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. What could put?
No way.
I mean, that's what they
Maybe
kept.
his mother didn't help, but that's really
When you read the books on it, that's all they talk about is how his mother was really overbearing on him, and that's what caused him. He was always looking for his mother after she
yeah.
passed.
Yeah, no,
I don't get
I
that
don't
kind of
know the
thing.
case, but this is what I'm talking about with base rates. Like
Okay,
how many mothers are overbearing and how many families overbearing mothers, overbearing fathers, neglectful parents. How many of those become like that guy?
right.
Yes, something else is going on there. I first realized that before I even started graduate school. I was working at Payne Whitney on the nursing staff before I started
Uh-huh.
graduate school, and this was in this early 70s, and my task was to just orient new patients. And I'm taking this guy up to an elevator, and I remember his name. His name was Eli,
Hmm.
because the song that had been out that I liked for a few years earlier was Eli's Coming, Hide Your Heart. Do you know that song? Yeah, I
Yeah, I
remember
know the
that song.
song.
So I was like, oh, Eli, okay. So I'm in the stairs. Now I'm going up the stairs. I'm sort of talking to him. And he's kind of just nodding. And now I know that look in the eye. That I didn't know it then, that he was like out to lunch. So I take him to his room, and this is in New York, right on the East River. It's Payne Whitney Clinic, Cornell Medical School. It's right on FDR Drive, if you're familiar with the city, and there's the East River. So as I'm orienting him, I notice I look up, and he's standing on the desk over the window, like with his hands outstretched. And I said, Eli, what are you doing? And the staff heard me calling him. They came in, and I was only there for a few weeks at that point. So they came in. The resident psychiatrist came in, took him down. I went in the nursing station, and I was kind of baffled. And so the staff came in and kind of looked at me and smiled. And I said, "What's going on there? What happened?" So they said Eli was going to part the East River. He was there trying to part the East River.
Okay.
I said, "What the? Are you serious?" I knew about schizophrenia. I mean, from reading about it in undergraduate, but I never saw that before. And I remember they were kind of laughing. I was just stunned. I was just stunned by it. And I remember thinking, I said it to the psychiatrist, the resident. His mother didn't do that. Something's really wrong with that. What makes someone like that? And he kind of did that. That's the big question. So
You
yeah,
make me
there's more going on than an overbearing mother with that
you
guy.
make me think of that segment of Frasier when both brothers were being psychiatrists to the old man that was really wealthy. He would give away his money and stuff, and
Yeah.
Niles talks to him and says, "Well, he's got dementia problems and all this." And Fraser says, "Oh no, he's just a fun guy that just he just likes to do fun things." And then while they're in court, guy gets up and he puts his train hat on, he blows the train whistle, and he says, "All aboard!"
Yeah, that's the way I felt with Eli. But yeah, so overbearing mother, no, that overbearing mother could cause problems. Overbearing mothers, if you have that, it causes internal problems. You
Hmm.
get neurotic, right?
Hmm.
You get issues. You get maybe anxiety issues. You have issues
Sure.
with men or with women. You don't get you don't get that sadistically bizarre
Right.
unless there's more going on with you. There's more going on in your mind and your biology. It's a host of things that are going to cause something like that. Yes, the mothers are blamed too much.
It's great to have books like yours because it gives people a better understanding, just like talking with you tonight, right? it gives people a better understanding of what goes on, and it, from your end, from your end, and then from their end.
Yeah,
Because
well, that's
otherwise,
good.
people just see what they see on TV and whatnot, and they hear about the big cases, like we talked about Bundy and we talked about it, Dean,
Yeah, right.
Kemper. You just you see these things, and then you think, well, they're all like that, but they're really
Yeah,
not, because a lot more goes into it than what's in books and TV.
yeah. That's why it's hard. It's bad to draw too many conclusions from like a few cases, sensational cases, but you
Mhm.
can't help it. I mean, it's even bad to develop law. You see this all the time. Something happens, and then Congress reacts, and they're going to have a law. It's based on you get in some experts to think about this before. Look at the legend. Don't just establish laws over some sensational act that could be just a distortion of the complexity of the issue. But that's just not what happens. But that's partly why I wrote the book. I mean, it was partly because I've been doing this for so long. I wanted to contribute some kind of something in a meaningful way that I thought I could, um, and in a way that shared actually the difficulties. I try to share my own insecurities about things in the book. It's not, and I look at TV shows, and they always have, when they have expert witnesses testifying,
Mm-hmm.
they always seem so haughty and sure. It's, oh, I don't know. That ain't the way I feel. You're kind of really nervous up there. You don't want to blow it. You don't want to make a fool of yourself, and also you want to, this person's life is on the line here.
Right.
So it's it's very stressful.
In some cases, will there be a psychiatrist who comes in for the defense and one that comes in for the prosecution?
Yes, especially usually in the insanity defense, because mostly the the prosecution's not going to hire someone. They're out to, they're prosecuting. They'll hire someone if they need to, like if the lawyer, especially for insanity, says, I'm gonna claim my client's insane, and I'm going to have an expert evaluate, and then they're going to say, well, we want our expert evaluating, and then you're off. Either they'll hire someone or the court. Frequently in those cases, the court appoints two of us, and we usually, this is again, the court may appoint two, and then the lawyers for the defense might hire, like they may hire me, even though someone else is doing it for the court.
Right.
So they want two opinions. So they want to know, they want kind of multiple opinions. They want multiple perspectives before they, so they know how to come out this at trial. So,
Cool.
but yeah, that's usually when the prosecution comes in.
Sir, it has been fun this hour picking your brain. I appreciate you answering all my questions.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I really do. And I'm going to read more of your book. I was able to say I've had a real busy couple weeks, so I skimmed through it. But I intend to read from cover to cover every page of your book. I'm going to do that. I have a copy here.
Great. I hope it's useful to you.
And I want to thank you for coming on.
Okay. Well, thank you.
I really appreciate it. Now, I have one more question that I ask everybody, and it's kind of a funny question. Yeah. You are on the Strip in Las Vegas, and there are other forensic psychologists out there, and they have books. Yeah. How do you get people to come in and read your book?
Well, I think what I tried to do, I think that's different in my book. I share a lot of myself in the book and my own thought process, my own hesitations, my own vulnerabilities, my own struggle, my own emotions on these cases. So I just don't try to give a cold, objective, expert perspective. I think I do that, but I also give what's behind that, and since what the struggle is to get to that. So I feel like it's I try to be more human in my writing. So I think that helps, and that's the feedback I get from my friends, but they're my friends, so I don't know. You let
Terrific.
me know when you read it. Email me if that seems to come through.
I got that. How can people reach you?
They can reach me through my website, crimepsychologist.com, and there's my phone number and contact information is on that.
And how do they get their book? Get the book.
Yeah, they can get the book in all the outlets they from on the internet, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. So all the different venues, or in bookstores. It's in bookstores.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again. I would love to have you on another time to pick your brain some more and really go into your book and stuff, because I really have enjoyed this and I learned so much from you.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you. And yeah, just let me know. I'll be glad
All
to
right.
come down with you again. This
Okay.
was fun.
Well, thank you very much, and fair enough. And thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye
You
bye.
have a great evening.
You
Bye bye.
too. Bye bye.
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I really learned a lot, talking about this stuff, because it's fascinating. And like I said, you see a lot of this stuff on TV, but it just doesn't hit well until you talk to someone who actually is out in the field doing it. Tomorrow, we are going to change gears a little bit. Julie Ryan is going to be on with us, and she is going to be talking about the 12 steps of transition when someone is dying. And I heard her on another show, and what she has to say is absolutely fascinating. So she's going to be with us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. So I just want to give you guys a heads up to that. Also, if you like the show, share it with five. Oh, you know what I almost forgot? See, I'm getting forgetful in my old age. I had my birthday, and now I'm getting senile. Um, I'm teaching a class on Saturday at 2 p.m. I tried to skip. I didn't want to do Super Bowl Sunday. I know how you guys are about the Super Bowl. And I'm teaching a class about protection. If you're having issues in your house with objects moving around, voices, whatever, ghosties, if you think there's a ghostie or something in your house, I can teach you how to protect yourself in very simple ways, from that. I can also teach you if you're out ghost hunting or you hang out in haunted places for fun. I can teach you ways to protect yourself that way too. So if you're interested in taking the class, go ahead and go to the California Haunts Radio website at californiahauntsradio.com and excuse me a second, and check it out. Go up all the way to the end, click on that thing at the top. It's one of those nights. Everything's a thing. And special events will drop down. You can check it out from there. But anyway, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you are going to see a little ghost with a Sherlock Holmes hat on and a magnifying glass, and that's our mascot for California Haunts. And if you click on that, that'll put you to the subscribe point. If you have trouble finding us online via YouTube, you can visit CaliforniaHauntsRadio.com, and this video right now is going out live on the front of the website. Click on it, and that'll take you over to our YouTube videos. Plus, like I said, there's archives. Go up to where it says archives, and you can go all the way back a whole year and a half of these shows. And then eventually you're going to be able to go back a whole 15 years of our other shows on Blog Talk Radio. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming on and listening and putting up with me and my oh yeahs and stuff, when I get lost in what I'm saying. You see that ticker rolling across the bottom? This is my PBS moment. California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team is nonprofit, so we only accept donations when we're out doing our work. So that means the radio show comes out of my pocket, which means the internet, StreamYard, all the broadcasting equipment, headphones, you name it. It all comes out of my pocket. And when something goes down, I've got to make up the cost and get things going. So if you could donate a little bit to us to keep us on the air, that would be great. I would really appreciate it because I want to keep these great guests coming. Like I said, I just love doing the show. I'm a journalist, and this gives me time to be a journalist and a ghost hunter at the same time. So I got the world by the tail, as they say. So if you could do that, that'd be great. That would be paypal.me at California Haunts. Or if you're uncomfortable with PayPal, you can go to Venmo and then type in California Haunts and we'll pop up right there. But I really appreciate it. Anyway, I thank you all for coming tonight. And again, tomorrow's guest will be Julie Ryan, the 12 steps of transition during the dying process. And I think it's going to be a very interesting show for people that have lost loved ones and people that are in the process of losing loved ones. I think it's going to make everybody feel a little better. Like I said, I heard her on another radio show, and I also was on her website checking things out, and it's a very, very interesting process that she describes. All right, well, I will see you tomorrow, and I'm going to go ahead and run his info with his book. So here we go. Oh, wrong button. Sorry, guys. See, there's like a buttons. Website, crimepsychologist.com. And that book is Decoding Madness. A forensic psychologist explores the criminal mind. And you can get that at Amazon and off of his website. Anyway, I want to thank you guys again. I will see you tomorrow, and have a good evening.